Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. The topic we'll be looking at is preparing the workforce to adapt and respond to volatility, uncertainty, and complexity of the business landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, and I'd like to read briefly about his profile. Aladiti Mishe is a dedicated HR professional with 3 years of experience, specializing in organizational development, strategy planning, learning, and development. He currently works with FOSAD Consult Research, staff audit, organizational restructuring, and talent development. He has extensive experience in managing diverse HR consultancy projects and developing robust training. He has his first degree. He got it from the Federal University of Technology, Akure, Futa, where he studies civil engineering, and is currently running his MBA with the prestigious Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Okay, he also is committed to continuous learning and adaptation. His skill sets include strategy consulting, project planning, and organizational development. His top skills include public speaking, as he will demonstrate tonight, conducting training needs analysis, strategy development, project planning, organizational development. Some of his certifications revolve around IT leadership with Charles Sturt University, enterprise design thinking co-creator with IBM, critical thinking for self-development with MSBM, and so on and so forth. Apart from his professional life, he enjoys playing chess. Hopefully, he'll play with Tunde one of these days, listening to music, and traveling. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's relax, sit back as she takes us through the journey on preparing the workforce to adapt and respond to the volatility, uncertainty, and complexity of the business landscape. Over to you, my brother.
All right. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. It was very expanding. From my side, I was just wondering, is that me? All right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction. Okay, as he has introduced, my name is Sheyi. Today, I will tell you that I'm very excited to share this with you wonderful people that is talking about how to prepare the workforce to adapt and respond to the volatility, the uncertainty, and the complexity of the business landscape. So you would journey with me as we would run through a few things. Would want to start by highlighting what we would be getting out of this short, I would call a discussion, or so to say. Some of the things I'll be able to get out is that after this particular discussion, you'll be able to discuss maybe wherever you may be, whether it's at work or with your friends, hanging out, you'll be able to discuss the consequence of not building an agile workforce. Also, you'll be able to also come up with how to build an agile team, a proactive team, and a disruptive team. Right? It's the journey. They are agile, they are proactive, and they are disruptive. And then lastly is that you'll be able to differentiate between an organization with a continuous learning culture and those that don't. Okay, so let me just run you briefly through the main focus of what we'll be running through. Yeah, the focus that we'll be running through is the changes, the key changes in the global business operation, and we're going to begin our journey from the industrial revolution to what we have at the moment. Then we will now narrow down our scope to BlackBerry. We all know BlackBerry, that wonderful mobile phone. So we're going to narrow it down to BlackBerry, and then from there we would pick a pace at which we move over the course of this discussion. So the content is simply that we'll begin with the global business operation, because in order to really tell what the future looks like, we should be able to at least do what we call a forecasting, looking back at what has been happening over time, and we can from there forecast what we expect in the future. Right, that's what I think. And also, I think it's also essential that we discuss maybe one of the major global well-known brands, maybe their oversight or the mistake that they made. We can, evaluate that and see how we'll learn one or two things from that, and then we'll discuss the way forward, and of course we'll draw a conclusion. So talking about the brief history about the world about an industrial revolution, of course, we understand very well that the industrial revolution began in the late 17th century, and but it was well known. It became a thing in the 18th century, and I'm sure a lot of people here are quite conversant with the history. So, but the first course of my discussion this evening will begin with the steam engine. Now, the major revolution that began in the 17th and the 18th century was centered around the development of the steam engine. Now, the steam engine itself was not a tool that was used to develop other things. Rather, it became itself was a tool that resulted in what we call a transformational system of how businesses are being carried out. Now, when I use this word, what do I mean by what I'm talking about? Now, before this particular time, before the design of the steam engine, that is the technology before the design of the steam engine, there were certain ways in which people implement their day-to-day activity. For example, in the farming, the agricultural industry, for example, you would people use horses, right? They yoke the horses, and then it takes a lot of work. You know, those days you would have people have a lot of children so that they can use them manually to run a lot of operations, and they take a lot of effort to get these things done. Not just that, even after you have, you know, maybe you plowed the ground, you've sowed the seed you didn't want to sow. It takes a lot of effort to also harvest. Not just that, even when you have done all of this, you have done your harvesting. Now, let's say, for example, you are doing it for a commercial purpose. You want to sell on a large scale. Now, it's also a problem to really transport it from your community to another community, because people primarily relied more often on the use of horses and carts to help them all their goods from one community to another community. So in that sense, there was a huge reduction in the number of, you know, how well you can conduct business transaction. Not only that, people who intend to, maybe, for example, in the transportation, those who want to travel, for example, would have a lot of limitation when it comes to the issue of transporting their goods from one place to another. That is even moving themselves from one place to another. Now, but when it came about the development of the steam engine, what happened is that people can now move in volumes and within a very short period of time. For example, people who want to live from one end of a particular country, a very good example is, let's say, United States of America, where, you know, they have a very huge land mass. So someone who's staying maybe in another part of US, who wants to travel down to maybe the southern part of US, who is going on horses, it takes them months to go through this journey. So, but when the development of the steam engine came, people can now travel with their goods within things that take them about, maybe, say, for example, 6 months, for example, now takes them just 2 weeks. So they can shuttle in between within just 2 weeks. So it means that I can move from point A to point B within a very short period of time. That is one. Secondly, also, it also means that I can move my goods from one point to another point. Now, not just that, another thing that now happened again was the mechanization and the development of new factories. Now, what does this really mean? It simply is that if, for example, you have been using horses to, you know, to plow your grounds, to do a lot of other things, now there are more developed mechanized tools that you can employ that would really require just little effort and will get you more results. And in light of that, it also means that certain organizations will need to start developing and constructing tools, developing factories, developing, you know, going in large scales. Okay, I'm sure we are familiar with this story, but I'm trying to build a foundation. So, but the resultant effect of this thing is that on the long run, it's resulted in the global trade economy. So, but what is the consequence of having something like this? What's the consequence of really in itself, the design of the steam engine? Like I said, the steam engine itself was not what was used to develop every other tool. No, but it became a medium through which every other thing were connected to. It became a foundation, a basis for the design of other things. Now, but let's just look at the industrialization part I talked about, the transportation part, and the economic impacts of which the steam engine caused, because it brought about a huge, massive turnaround. That is what we now call the word disruption. That is, it changed the way things are being carried out. It changed the way businesses are being conducted. It changed the way in which goods are being moved from place to place. Now, I'll back up a little. Okay. Now, like I said earlier, that there was a huge problem with it, with how people can transport their goods from point A to point B. And that very, very massive challenge was how to cross over. Example, like the Mississippi River in US, it was a very, very big problem for people to transit their goods, which is should have been more shorter if they cross over the bridge, like if they have a bridge and cross over the bridge, as compared to trying to haul things over a long distance. Now, the industrialization in itself began with in the places of textiles, manufacturing, mining, and majorly on transportation. So major countries, major cities rather, that had a huge and massive population began to grow exponentially. Now, what's really happening now? What's really happening here? This is what's really happening. So everything began with certain individuals who foresaw, after the development of the steam engine, who foresaw, oh, okay, now we have a steam engine who can actually help us pass certain things. What about if, instead of using the normal conventional, traditional way of developing our textiles, right? Using the normal conventional way to, develop the thing, and it takes us months just to develop just a few things. Now we have machines who can develop these things within a very, very short period of time. Now, when we even develop these products, how do we sell them? Now we have steam engine. We can get a train, because the development of the steam engine led to development like things like maybe like trains, for example. So it means that I can get massive goods, put them on the train, and my goods will not be spoiled before the time interval. Now, know before now that during the times when they were using horses to haul huge, massive goods, some of their goods were prone to spoilage over time, because some of the goods that you have, for example, maybe their time period is 3 weeks. But because of the stress that you would have to go through trying to haul your goods with a cart being led by a horse, it might take you about maybe 2 months. And before you know, some of your goods are now being destroyed or are now being spoiled for one reason or the other. Some other times it might be bad weather and it affects the old goods. But now we have train. I can move all of my goods on the train and then transport easily to to my buyer, because now I'm the supplier. Now, not just that, also it now began to have its economic impact. Now, economic impact in what sense? You should understand that certain people will leverage on that opportunity, and then they will create wealth out of it. Now, how does this really, really work? The way it works is that because the major city and the urban city are now developing themselves in real time, people are now abandoning things around agriculture. Why? Because while you're still trying to use 2 or 3 horses, to plow your ground, somebody has used a mechanized device to plow everything within what you're trying to achieve in a month or in 2 months. Somebody did it in 2 days. So they can scale up their goods and then move it in large scale. So those who do not have enough money to support themselves had no option but to leave the villages, the remote villages, and then go to the urban locations where things are really happening, because they expected that is where the real money would come from. Okay, now I would also try to give us a very, very short basis again that will give us more insight to some of these things I'm talking about. Now, I talked about the fact that there were issues around, trying to construct a railway track, because now you have developed a train, you need a railway track in order to have a very good system of transporting your goods over the train. That means you need to develop a very good railway track network. Now, another challenge came about, they've already been developing, and there have been certain issues. What was the issue? The issue was around the development of steel. They were using cast iron, but because of the little strength that cast iron has as compared to steel, they were having a lot of accidents. Okay, and so there was a need for the development of something much durable that can sustain heavy goods over a bridge. Okay, so it now led to the development. Okay, let's look at what we can do. And the results showed that one of the things that can really withstand some of those heavy strengths was a steel. Now, please note that I began with talking about steam engine. Now, steam engine now moved itself to the development of train. Now, the development of train now requires that we create a railway track network. So if you're going to develop a good railway track network that can sustain heavy loads, it means that you will need good materials. So it means that how do we then get these good materials? It is through mining. So, but when we mine these materials, how do we even ensure that we get them in the right ratios? So now if you begin to see these things, it was just steam engine, but in the long run, the whole thing became exponential. Now, Exponential in what sense? Exponential in the sense that there was emergence of new jobs. So, for example, I talked about the fact that earlier people were using horses and they're using cars to move their goods. So, but now with the development of trains, of ships to all goods, it means that a certain person would have to sit down and design what a standard ship would look like. It also means that even if you have designed it, you also need guys who would come and construct them. If you construct them, it also means that you also need guys who would be running the ships. Now, if you are running the ship, you also need to form an agency. So by default, there was an emergence of new jobs. So whether you like it or not, you will need to upskill yourself. In the place where you choose not to upskill yourself, you'll be left behind, and then that means that you'll have to go back to the village. So in order to stay relevant and be in the industry and be in the game, you need to keep up with the pace of how things are happening. That is one. Two is that there was a change in demography. Demography, about what I'm talking about, is the fact that certain jobs that have been reduced to just, it's for those that are in their 60s, or it's for those who are in their 50s, or for those who are only young. Now they can now other people can actually implement some of those jobs. What am I talking about? Let me give you more context to what I'm talking about. So, for example, you would expect someone who is between the age of, say, 25 to about, say, 45 to plow the ground because they are young and they need a lot of strength. And those who are above 50 or above 60 do not have enough strength to plow the ground and be in the agricultural sector. So, but with the new development that come up with the steam engine, and which led to the development of other tools and other mechanized agricultural tools, it means that an elderly person can use some of these tools if he knows how to operate them, use some of these tools without having to rely heavily on young people. A change. Now, not only that, it also resulted in migration of people who were in a more remote environment, who were in a more localized environment, into the urban environment. So in other words, in more context, I will use maybe like a Lagos, for example. So in more context, you have a location like Lagos to be highly populated. Why? Because people perceive that in Lagos State, there are more opportunities as compared to, some other states within Nigeria. So, and people feel like if you are in another state within Nigeria, you might not be really exposed to the right tools, to the right network, to the right individuals who will really push your business. So if you want to really narrow down in its real sense, major business owners in Nigeria, major business moguls in Nigeria have at least their base in Lagos. So in the same way, a lot of people were migrating because of opportunity, major opportunities in the urban locations. So which result in one thing, what? Housing. For example, in Lagos, housing is very, very huge demand because of the level of migration in Lagos. So back in those days, because of the migration that is happening in the urban location, there was a need for the development of new high-rise structures. And to develop high-rise structures, you need steel. So now we are moving from the use of steel for railway tracks. We are now using steel for the construction of buildings. So which means that civil engineers will actually have to now sit down and reevaluate how they get their jobs done. Now, not only that, another thing again that also happened is value change. So, for example, if you had always expected that, to communicate or to send a good from point A to point B is 6 months, for example, and by the time they bring the goods to you, maybe 50% of the goods are spoiled already. The other 50% are still very, very good. And you would understand with them because of the situation that you are in. So, but now with the development of, the train and your ship, it means that there are no excuses. If there are any reasons at all for your supplier to send certain goods, and by the time they get to your side, it's spoiled, then you might want to return some of the goods back to your supplier based on the contract or agreement that you have with your suppliers. And then also I talked about the acquisition of new skills, right? So for example, before the emergence of the train, nobody knew how to drive a train. So, but because of the new development of the train, by default, certain person will need to learn how to drive a train. So it means that certain jobs will be left behind. So jobs like, learning how to ride horses would not be a major thing. Rather, learning how to drive vehicles, learning how to captain a ship, learning how to control and drive, mechanized tools will now be the new things that you will need to focus on. Now that is disruption, but it started subtly with the development of one thing. What was that? Steam engine. So I want to be sure that we are together. Please, can you hear me? Anyone, please just let me know. So I'll be sure everyone can hear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Now, let's now move quite forward and just journey quickly to the information age, because I know, like I said, I'm sure that a lot of us are well read and well exposed here, so I wouldn't want to really take your time. So, but let's just quickly move to the information age. So, what's about the information age? The information age itself began in the late 20th century, and the major things that were really developed during the 20th century was the microprocessor in the 1971. Then secondly was development of the personal computer in 1977 and in the 1980s. And then thirdly was development of the internet and the World Wide Web. Now, but with this little development, what was the consequence? What happened? What was this disruption? What was the thing that really changed people's perspective and people's communication? I'll point a few towards that I would really synergize together, that would give us an headway to where we are going to. Now, the emergence of computer and internet resulted in one thing: global communication, which was the thing that had been a major problem. Global communications in the sense that, for example, somebody can be in Nigeria and then send an SMS or send an email to somebody who's in the US, which was the thing that has never happened before. Oftentimes, people has always used Telegram, to send information, but now people now can use the internet, the World Wide Web. Now that is about communication. So I don't have to, go to the to the post office to type to send a mail or to send certain goods to certain persons. But by the use of my computer and the internet, I have access to anybody in the world. That is one. Two was that there was a shift in how businesses were being conducted. Now, that was the rise of some certain e-commerce platform. For example, is the Alibaba. Alibaba began its operation in 1998, I think, or 1999, where he went to the US and he saw the internet and how the internet was booming. And then he moved from US and came back to China and said, you know what, I think we need to create something that is very, very unique. What was that? E-commerce. Now, he said that, according to Jack Ma, he said that when he was in China, when he came up with that initiative, people said he was crazy. Because back then in China, people didn't have a lot of information with regards to internet, right? So businesses began to leverage heavily on the internet. That is the use of development of microprocessors, development of computers, and development of internet. Those were the only three things that were developed. But these three things affected every sector. It affected how businesses are being conducted. So it simply means that if, for example, I wanted to reach out to, I used to use maybe an intermediary, for example, to get certain goods. It means that by now, I can call directly, I can call the supplier directly without going through the distributor, just because of the transition that I moved from having another mode of doing things to having a digital way of doing things. Now, the third part is that global, the rate of communication, the rate of networking, the rate of collaboration became global. Global in what sense? It means that if I'm going to, I can operate my business in Nigeria, operate my business in China, operate my business in the US without always having to worry about traveling from place to place. All I just have to do is that get my phones ready, get my devices ready, put my call through to all of my branch managers, and then I get information, a good number of information about what is going on. So if you see companies like Google, for example, Google began its operation in 1996, it began like as a research, and then they began to scale up little by little. Originally, they came up with the concept of, people can always go online to search for information. That was just the concept, the WW, and this is the World Wide Web. That was just only the concept. And then as we began to see, certain emergence began to happen. Certain need began to happen. And then certain disruptions began to happen. So, but what are the disruptions that actually happened? Again, emergence of new jobs, change in demography, globalization, value change, and the acquisition of new skills. So it simply means that as this new development comes in, you need to align yourself, that is jump on a train, because if you don't jump on the train will leave you behind. So in this period, within this interval of time, people began to leverage more on the use of computers to solve problems. So instead of now using, oh yes, we can use our device, our mechanized tools to solve problems. Now we can even solve quantum problems with a computer. I can collaborate more with my team. I can solve more problems within a very, very short period of time. And everything became a lot much easier with just the development of a fundamental thing, microprocessor, personal computers, and that's it. And those two things, and then of course the World Wide Web. Those three things were enough to disrupt how businesses are being conducted on a global scale. Now, what I've been talking about might seem very theoretical to you, right? It might seem very theoretical to you. So I'm going to use BlackBerry, which everybody knows about, as a case study for our discussion. Now, I'm sure everybody is quite familiar with BlackBerry, at least, everybody, it was a thing that was really in vogue back then. So, but BlackBerry is a Canadian brand that began in 1999. It was more like a research in motion that came up and then introduced a first pager that has an email capability, which resulted in what we have as the BlackBerry. Now, the BlackBerry was a thing that was really, really in vogue within the business professionals, because it was doing one particular thing that was very, very crucial. What was it? Email integration. So it was the first smartphone itself that has an email integration. And from there, beyond just calling, beyond just doing the regular things, you can send emails, and which was a big deal for business owners within this period. So by 2000, they had gained dominance. They were everywhere. Their market was doing very well. They have a very high market share, and their brand was really, really booming. Really, really booming. And I'm sure a lot of persons here can bear very good witness to that. So, but now, what now happened? What resulted in certain things that really happened to the integration that happened with BlackBerry? Now, it began in 2007 when there was a release, or should I say the introduction of the iPhone into the marketplace. Now, the iPhone was quite different. Different in what sense? It was different in two ways. One, it had a full touchscreen interface. Two, it factored in what we call the user experience. Now, because of this little design that came up, that is the design of a mobile phone or a smartphone that has primarily all the full screen is touchscreen, and then they also factor in user experience. So all of a sudden, people now began to have this very, very huge interest. That is, consumer now began to shift from just having the normal regular physical keyboards on your phone to now having a touchscreen, because the touchscreen was really seamless and it was really enjoyable for a lot of persons. So iPhone then emerged into the market. So, but when iPhone broke into the market, what did BlackBerry do? Nothing. We are BlackBerry, we are a global brand, we are well known, business owners use us, and that's it. Now, when the development of iPhone came up, Google also came up with their own and developed what we call the Android OS. Now, the Android OS was so unique in the sense, and one of the things that they leveraged on was using an open source mobile operating system, such that anybody at any point can develop mobile applications and then put on their store. So with this innovation that began to happen into the market space, BlackBerry was still very, very big about what was going on. Now, I would also point out to something very, very crucial that would also need to have at the back of our mind. And that is that during this development, one particular unique selling point that BlackBerry had back then was their BB pin. And I'm sure everybody here remembers BB pin. Yes, it was the thing. So if you don't have a BlackBerry, you are not in vogue. Like, you're not a big boy, you're not a big girl, you don't know anything at all. So it was the thing everybody goes about, I want your pin, can I have your pin, and things like that. So, but with and that's just it, and some other few features. But with the development of a tool, an application like WhatsApp brought a massive disruption to BB pin. How? So if I had your number back then, I'm sure everybody remembers this. If I had your number back then, I still do not have, I can't still access your BB pin. I still have to ask you to please share your BB pin with me before I can actually send you a message real time. So, but whereas with WhatsApp, when I have WhatsApp installed on my phone, all I just have to do is refresh my applications, and then those are on WhatsApp will show up on my feed, and then I can start sending them messages. So it also means that if I have not met any of my friends in a very long period of time, and I have their number on my phone and they're on WhatsApp, by installing WhatsApp on my phone, if I refresh my phone, I have access to reaching out to the person via WhatsApp. Now, it looks subtle, but it was a thing, because now there has begun a shift is happening. What was that shift? The shift in consumers' preference. But all of this I'm still telling you, BlackBerry doesn't still really know what was going on. They were still seeing themselves as a major market shareholder in the world of the mobile smartphones, what we have as mobile phones. Not the only Google didn't really stop there. Google now went further. That is the parent company, the Alphabet, the parent company, now went further, such that on their platform, people now began to, put on video games, very, very nice interactive video games. So with your Android phone, you can install a very, very interactive video game on your phone. Now, although back then some Android phone also patronized BB to get some of their pins, but because of the rise in WhatsApp, people now began to shift from the use of BBM pin, as using a BlackBerry and its pin and whatever features he had, and began to transition to the use of either an iPhone or a regular Android phone, like Samsung, who were really manufacturing and releasing product in its scale. So anybody at any point can go online and download FIFA on their phone, download PES on their phone, download, different mobile games. And it was really, really engaging. It was really, really interesting for a lot of people. Because of that, there was now a rise in competitions against BlackBerry, because now there's a change in consumers' demand. And because of this massive rise in consumer demand, people now began to shift from the use of BlackBerry to the use of iPhone and to use of other Android devices like maybe Samsung. So by this time, it was becoming quite a little bit late for BlackBerry to really identify that there is a massive turnaround in the demand of smartphones. So it's no longer just about giving them BB by giving you my BB pin. It's no longer about sharing you my Facebook number. It's no longer about I can still browse on my phone. No, but it's about a change in the preference of the consumers. What was the result of this? Of course, obviously, there was a decline in their market share, and which resulted in their financial troubles. So now people now don't really want to go for their products. Others would rather prefer to go for an iPhone or go for an Android phone, maybe a Samsung phone, that would give them more interactive and more engaging feature. Now, what happened here is that Apple was disruptive. Samsung also saw it and also jumped on the train. Google also saw this and leveraged on developing operating system. Unfortunately, BlackBerry were not very agile with their development. Now, this disruption that I just gave us an insight into then puts Samsung in a very, very high and intense pressure. Now, when I say pressure in what sense? It means now that they are not ruling when it comes to mobile operating system. It also means that they are also not ruling in the design of mobile applications. It also means that they are not also involved when it comes to the development of mobile phones. So this decline affected them. Now they were really, really disrupted, because now there has been a major shift in market demand, such that people were now going more for iPhone, and more people are not going more for the Android phone over the use of the BlackBerry. Now, you would, with this few information that I've shared, you would be wondering, okay, so but what did BlackBerry really now do? They are a very big brand. They have all the money. What now happened? Well, they did attempt to recover, but unfortunately, they were not able to really stand in the marketplace when it comes to development of smartphone, mobile phones. So what they now did back then was that they developed BlackBerry 10 and Prive. Of course, I know a lot of us know about Prive, which was released, which now has, which now had the touchscreen interface, which now has the very, very wonderful operating system and is now Android-based. But unfortunately, people had moved already. People had already moved from BlackBerry now to iPhone and to Samsung and other smartphone producers. Now, so also they now, aside from that, they also tried to transition to software services. Well, they develop, hardware and software solutions, which is what they are actually doing at the moment. Which is like the major thing that they're really focusing on. But even now, a lot of people do not still know that BlackBerry is still in business. They maybe thought they are really out of business completely, but they are still in business. But what they just now do is that they just focus more on development of software and services, whether it is security software and mobile device management softwares. Okay, and also they also try to still regain their market position, but unfortunately, they have to sell out some of their strategic partnership, and it resulted in a lot of downfall for them, so to say. Not completely, but to a very large extent, it was much like a downfall, and they have to really just leverage on the development of software and software services, that is SaaS. Now, but let's now look forward, right? Having talked about the industrial revolution, which is the development of the steam engine, having talked about the development of the internet and the computers and microprocessors, and then using a company like BlackBerry as a case study, who were not very, very sensitive to what was really going on or what was in place in time of the global demand or consumer requirements. Now, so let's now look at what's the role of you as an HR professional or as a management. What's your role? What part do you have to play in order to become disruptive? Because it's two of one thing, whether you like it or not. It's either you are disruptive, that is, you destroy the standard thing, or other people come and disrupt you. That is just two of one thing. You just have to either be the one that caused the disruption, or you learn to jump on the train. Because whether I like it or not, the train is going to leave the terminal. So the question is, would you be on the train?
You
said what? Sorry.
The gate.
You said what? I didn't get what you said. Sorry. Okay, I thought you were maybe talking to me or something.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So now, as management, what do you have to do if you, for example, you are in the management section of the organization? What's your role? What do you want to do? So the main question here is, what do you want to do? Do you want to be disruptive, or you want to learn to jump on the train, or you're just indifferent? Now, but this question I ask real time, if you ask a lot of top management, they will always tell you, oh, we are very disruptive, and then ask them, what are the things you put in place to be disruptive? What major changes have you brought to your industry? And then a lot of people would go really mute. Now, why am I saying this? The reason why I'm saying this is because whether I would like it or not, for example, AI, that is the AI, the Gen AI that has come to stay, and is coming in a sense like a tool that will be required for professionals, for example. So just like the use of Google comes handy, as a professional, you must be able to efficiently learn how to use Google. As Google is a tool to any professional, I assure you for a fact that AI, that is the Gen AI, is going to be a tool on the long run for professionals. So, but the question is, how well is your organization preparing for these changes? Because if you really want to journey with me from the back, you would observe that the major thing that brings about some of these changes was just the development of new things. The industrial revolution, it was just development of the steam engine that caused a massive disruption. In the 20th century, it was just the development of the microprocessor, the personal computer, and the internet that resulted in a massive translation and transition of how business are being consulted globally. Now, but at the moment, you will really observe that certain emphasis are being paid on AI, and a lot of organizations are investing heavily on the use of AI. So it means that as an organization, if you really mean business, you need to start paying close attention to how AI relates to your business. What role will AI play on your business? I'm not saying you're going to really focus and transition really fully into tech, but what I'm saying is that whether you like it or not, AI is going to be your day-to-day tool that you'll be required in your organization. So in that sense, what are you doing? Remember that when I was going from place to place, I was going from place to place, I mean, going from the Industrial Revolution, of development of the steam engine to the development of the internet. One of the major things that you always see that I showed you is that there was a change in value. There was a need for the acquisition of new skills. There was things around globalization. Now, these are very, very important things. And there was a change and transition in the demand, that is the consumer demand. There was a preference, a change that happened. So now let me bring this to more context, to give you more context as a thing. I'll use learning and development, for example. So for learning and development, a lot of instructional designers or a lot of L&D professionals are leveraging heavily on the use of AI, whether it's for video generation, content generation, and they integrate their whole thing into it and then get their jobs done, projects done, projects that would naturally take them about 6 months to do. Now, within a month, they get them done with the use of these tools. So the question is, as an organization, what are your plans with regards to setting up tools? I understand that you might not have all of the financial resources to get the best of the tools. So, but the question is, are you preparing at all? So, like I said, you need to ask yourself, and the way to ask yourself is not just asking yourself, is by looking at the actions and the decisions that the organization is making with respect to your disruption. Okay, you need to really come evaluate and look at things again. Do we really mean business about disruption? Are we sure about disruption? What are our plans? What are we looking at in the next 10 years? Now, second thing that we need to also put into perspective is asking a very, very important question. What is the vision of our organization? What is our mission? And what is our main objectives? Now, this thing is a common word that is being used in the professional world, but I can assure you, with my very short experience, most middle-level managers are not very clear about the vision and the mission of the organization. Talk less of the frontline employees. Now, the goal of the organization or the objective of the organization should be so clear that everyone in the organization understands what we're trying to do. So I'll give you a very good example. I will use the tech as a very good example. And the tech that I will talk about here is I will use Apple as a very good example. Now, Apple is into, we know that they're into technology, but they have a strategy. What is their strategy? It's two things. The first one is design. The second one is innovation. That is their unique selling point. It doesn't mean that other manufacturers do not produce wonderful phones or do not produce nice phones. Rather, what they have as a strategy is innovation and design. And in line to this, when they're going to hire people, what they really focus on, what is their major goal is creativity. We want to see how agile you are with your level of creativity, how creative are you, how innovative are you. Now, those are the things that they look out for when it comes to hiring people, because there is a popular saying that an organization is only as strong as its people. So the question is, where you are going to, do you have quite the right talent who can get these things done? Remember, one of the things I said earlier is that oftentimes during this disruption, it happens gradually. So it means that there are certain transitions that happens. Certain skills are dropped behind and certain skills are picked up. So it is very, very important that we align some of these structures with company strategy. Company strategy in the sense that I just gave us an analogy about Apple as an example, where Apple, for me, I'm very sure that their strategy is on design, and you would always see in all of their products that they don't joke with their design and they don't joke with innovations. Now, those two things are their strategy. Every other thing is built around it. So it means that if you're going to check some of their core units, one of their core units is going to be their R&D, that is their research and development team. So that means that they will invest everything in their R&D. They will give their R&D the best of tools to come up with new initiatives. They will give their R&D team, expose them to the best of environment in order to stay at the peak of their service to their consumers. Now, I come across a very, very funny picture, which speaks volume. Now, this picture is about a particular matter. Very, very, I think the picture, it was depicting an incident that happened in 2001, I think. So in that picture, it was showing a videographer, which is, with his camera, big camera, holding his camera. He was sitting on the chopper and he was trying to capture an area view. So the chopper was, the pilot was there trying to control the chopper and the cost of powering the chopper. And now we also have a videographer who has his video trying to cover an area view. But now come the emergence of what we call a drone. Now, a drone would also perform the function of the videographer. So, but you know what have just happened with the development of a drone? We have just displaced a pilot who has a job, because we have a drone, we can take area views, and so we don't need a helicopter. So if we don't need a helicopter, it means that we don't need a pilot. If we don't need a pilot, it means that we don't need to fuel our helicopter. It also means that we don't also need plenty of people to do maintenance on a helicopter. That is one. Another thing also means that if the videographer, for example, they would tell him, you're very skillful. Then to stand to steady yourself on the helicopter, carrying your camera, and taking very, very nice coverage. Now there's a drone. We don't need you as a videographer again. You don't have to stand in the helicopter. Now we have somebody who stands somewhere or sits somewhere and they control a drone. So what's the problem? The problem is that the videographer who was using the camera to make an area view, it means that if the videographer doesn't learn how to use a drone, he's going to lose his job. But note that these fundamental skills to be a videographer, the man has it. The difference is just tools. He doesn't know how to use a drone. So because of that, they will not employ him. Not just employ him, they will not get certain projects. And then what happens is that he feels bad, he feels rejected, and then what happens is that, he goes back to his village and then maybe starts farming. Now, in this context, try to position this thing in alignment to your organization. So imagine, say, before COVID, way before COVID. Let me even go back to, say, 2010. In 2010, only few companies have teleconferencing tools. I think companies like maybe Cisco and likes of them, a few of them have teleconferencing tools. Most organizations know nothing about teleconferencing. Most organizations has nothing to do about, knows nothing, really nothing about the use of, you can work from home, you can work from Japan, and we just do our connection via Zoom or via Teams, and we communicate and we get the job done. It was not a thing. It only dawned more on a lot of organizations in Nigeria during COVID that I think we need to come up with new tools or come up with new things. Now, if there had not been a massive demand, right? There a massive demand for a massive incident, of what happened during the COVID, a lot of organizations will still be very, very obsolete when it comes to some of these tools. But did you know that the result of the COVID also affected a lot of business operations, because some of them were not prepared for the use of teleconferencing tools, different internet tools that that will make you work from anywhere in the world. That is working maybe telecommuting or working remotely. So the incident of the COVID brought realization to a lot of organizations to see their present state. That, we think we are very, very initiative and we think we are very, very innovative, but looking at what we have, we think we are really, really behind the scene. So you don't have to wait until when COVID happens before you start preparing your organization to really, really be at the top of its game. Now, when I talk about structure, let me just balance this and I would plan the whole thing. When I talk about structure, what do we mean about structure at the workplace? I said to you earlier that no workforce, no organization is bigger than its employees. No organization is better than its employees. As a matter of fact, the results you perform is showing you the kind of talent you have within your organization, how creative, how innovative are your management, your mid-levels, and your support or your entry levels. So it is very important that as an organization, you put your workforce at the center of your business. And for a lot of organizations, it would come in diverse ways, it would come in different ways. So for example, some of the strategy that a company like Google really leveraged on is that they gave their employees a project time off. What do I mean by a project time off? A time where you can work on personal projects beyond just normal regular organization and corporate project. You can work on your personal project. But you know the wonderful things? What I saw is about the research I saw online was that about 7 to about 15% of the products that were developed, that I think that was released by Google, came up from individuals who were working on personal products. That is personal individual project that has nothing to do with organization. So you need to learn to put your workforce at the center. Unfortunately, you know, for top management, the emphasis is about making money. But we forget that the money is made through the workforce. So the way to make more money is to ensure that you do the right thing. Now, what do I mean by do the right thing? I will back us a little again, just a little, to the Industrial Revolution. 2 things. I will talk about Henry Ford, and I'll also talk about Henry Carnegie, who started what we call the U.S. Steel today. The U.S. Steel. It was one that began development of the steel. Now, during that period, because it's a time where they don't really have any labor union, no labor, nothing, not union. People work all around the clock, and they pay them very little amount of money, and they would, of course, we work with a temperature of over 1,000 degrees Celsius because you're trying to work with steel. We need very, 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 very high temperature to really work under that thing. And the result was that a lot of their staff were, you know, some would faint, some would die because of different incidents that was happening. On the other hand, Henry Ford developed what we call the assembly line. What did he do? Instead of you working 12 hours per day, you just work 8 hours per day. What do? We have to develop a vehicle, you know, we develop different things, the shaft, the wheel, just to assemble different tools. So you create different people, group of five. The only thing that each person is doing in the group of 5 is to develop a shaft. So 5 people will just stand on the line, develop shaft, and pass it along, which is a system that is now being used in different manufacturing industry. So the pressure on you is less, the time you spend on working is less, and they are paying them more. So because of this, people were now inclined to really now work with Henry Ford. Not only work with Henry Ford, but to also come up with, system of how to, you want to enjoy your life. At least everybody wants to enjoy life, make money, work, and also enjoy life. So by working with Henry Ford, you get to work less as compared to those who are in the steel industry. Not only that, you get paid more, and you have more time for yourself and your family. Not only that, your health is safe, because those who are working in the steel industry, for example, because of their exposure to different materials, their health are deteriorated. But you have to come and work in the assembly line, because you are doing more with assembly, you have a longer lifespan as compared to someone who is working in a very, very dangerous place, like maybe like mining or working in the steel industry. Now, the second thing that you also need to put in place is culture. I will tell you for a fact that not many organizations in Nigeria has good culture. Although it's a thing we say, good culture. One of the places that a lot of the times when I go to LinkedIn and laugh a lot, you will see wonderful English. Oh, build the right culture, build the good cultures, and I would see it and I will laugh. And this is why I laugh, is because when you ask a lot of organizations, especially top management, what do you put in place to have a good culture? And they will tell you that, we have hangouts, we have good get together. Some will even tell that we give people lunch, give lunch, and so, but that's not culture. That's not it, because we know for a fact that culture is the way things are being done within an organization. Of the document, how is paper A being passed to paper B? How is paper B reports to paper C? How does an employee, get approval for leave? Does the person have to go and meet the HR or report to the manager, or tell the manager and tell HR and go and tell the CEO? Now, when we talk about culture, like I said, it's simply the way in which businesses are being, or activities are being carried out within an organization. A culture in itself, the core people that really drive down culture is the management. The management are the one that drives down culture. Now, I remember a story that Simon Sinek's talks about he's a public speaker. Simon Sinek is someone that really respect a lot. And he talked about the incident that he had with a particular guy. One guy at different locations. Now, he said he met this guy at an hotel. And he walked up to this guy and he said he didn't like the way the guy addressed him. The way the guy addressed him, he didn't like it. He said, so he left the hotel and had to do a few things. And then he saw across the road a coffee shop. So he said he went in there to go grab a coffee. And he saw the same guy by the coffee shop, he's the barista serving the coffee. And he approached the guy, and the guy was beaming with wonderful smile. And, he grabbed the coffee from the guy and asked the guy, do you love your job? And the guy said, I love my job. So now I asked the guy, like, okay, so I saw you in an hotel earlier, and you were really, really, the way you addressed me, I didn't really like the way you addressed me, but I'm here, and it feels warm. I'm excited meeting you. And he said the young guy said that in the hotel, there are a lot of pressures. Managers are always putting pressures on you, shouting at you, telling you to do this and do that. He said, but in the coffee shop, what happens is that even managers that are not your manager care for you. They will ask you, hey, are you good? What do you need? Is everything all right? Do you need them with anything at all? And he tells them, I'm fine, I'm good. And they are just on the lookout for you. Now, he said these two environments were a factor that was the determinant for the disposition of this man towards him. So the same person in different environments doing different things. So the bottom line, what I'm trying to tell you is that you would have to sit down and review the culture of the organization. And the way to review the culture of the organization, it doesn't have to be through you. And I think another very funny way in which organizations tells people, give us feedback. He said, yeah, now they will have a very round meeting and they will tell people, yeah, stand up. Anybody, if you have feedback about to share with us about your stand up, you know that people will just want to keep their heads down and keep their jobs down because they know you are very, very defensive. They will not want to share anything at all. So instead of going that route, why not make it anonymous? Maybe create a suggestion box. Now, a virtual suggestion box, maybe you really want to go green, I don't know, it depends on your organization. Create a suggestion box, an anonymous suggestion box, let people drop their feedback. So you can't track it to anybody. You can't say, oh, it's person A or person B that did this thing. And that way you can really now say, okay, we have a culture that is not destructive. We have a culture that is not agile. We have a culture that is not proactive. And then now you can now build your structure around it. Now, not only that, you now also want to consider your employee value proposition, EVP, to increase engagement and motivation, because improving your culture is one thing, but also trying to increase engagement and motivation is another very, very important thing. So, but the question is, how do you increase engagement? How do you improve motivation? The question is asking the people that does the job, what matters to them? What matters to them? What do you care about? Because oftentimes, for example, oftentimes people will tell you, oh, let's have an hangout on Friday after work. Let's have an hangout. It's the time we want to bound, want to hang out. So, but what about if for somebody, they would rather prefer to spend their time with their family at home than doing an hangout? What about those who have loved ones who are in the hospital they are trying to take care of, and now you are mandating that everybody should have an hangout? So now you want to put this into perspective, and the only way to put it into perspective is to ask questions. What matters to you? So certain persons, what matters to them is working on major projects. Some other persons, I just want a balanced life. Work, collect salary, and go home. But certain persons, they just want to work on major projects. I really don't care about family. I don't really care. I just want to work on major projects. So when you're able to identify some of these things, and of course, the major motivation factor, which is like very, 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 very important, is of course salary, right? Salary, remuneration, very, very important. So when you put this into perspective, it will help you bring together a very, very engaging and motivating workforce. Now, when you have done this thing, it's also very important that you provide them with the right work tools. So, for example, let's say at the moment, your organization still uses Excel to process payroll, right? And let's say you are an outsourcing company and you have in total, you have about 10,000 staff that you really manage, that you manage. And your team are using Excel. Now, imagine how long it will take them to process payroll for 10,000 staff. So now imagine the time it will take them to develop pay slip for each person for 10,000 staff. Now, imagine how long it will take if somebody now requests that, please, between 2018 and 2019, can you please provide me with my pay slip? Look at how much work it will require for them to go back to 2018 and start playing Excel one after the other to develop and generate pay slip. So it means that a job that is supposed to take them 2 days, for example, they will do it in 2 weeks, and it will result in fatigue. They'll be exhausted, tired, and frustrated. And in the long run, they'll be disengaged, which is not what you really want, because what you want is those who are very, very creative, those who are agile, those who are very, very proactive. But that will only come when they see what you do as an organization. If they see that you come up with new initiatives, I assure you for a fact, guys will tell you new things. Now, another very important thing is that as a business, you need to create a system of a continual learning environment. And it begins with you as the top management. You don't have to be defensive at all time. You know, that's another very funny thing. Management can be very, very defensive. They have every reason and excuses for why things are not working and why things are like this and why things are like that. And if the case is reversed to the employee, they tell the employee, no, you have no excuses. That is why we pay you every day, or that's why we pay you. Now, I mean, no, we're trying to say that employers do not have the right to charge, or top management do not have the right to charge their employees when it comes to certain jobs being done. But what I'm saying is that it's important as management to be open to feedbacks, because that's the way to change. The workforce are the ones that, you know, they have friends, they have colleagues in other industries, in other areas, in other locations, and they can tell, oh, this is what is really in vogue, this is what is really going on. How can we integrate this system into our organization and make things very, very differently and become very, very disruptive? Because I assure you for a fact, if your team provide you with an initiative the first time and you turn it down without adequately giving them reason why you're turning it down, because there are certain times, for example, where they can come up with initiative and you think that that initiative is not in line with the objective of the organization, you need to provide them with the basis why you are turning it down. You don't just say, oh, it's rubbish and go out, get out. But you give them that, oh, this is a very nice initiative, but at the moment, this is not what we're looking at. At the moment, this is what we are looking at, and I feel that if you guys can come together, if you guys come up with something very, very nice like this, I believe very well that if you guys go back and brainstorm, something much better would come up. That way, it gives the employee a sense that we recognize what you do. Not only that, moments where employees, you know, come up with these wonderful initiatives, it is good that you reward them. Sometimes it might not be monetary. It might just be recognition. You know, you can have maybe a general meeting and then call them up and then recognize them in front of their colleagues about the new initiative they came with that you tried out and it really worked out for you. Now, I remember, you know, some of us will wonder, you know, why companies like IBM and the big brands are doing very well. And I think I saw an article where the R&D team for IBM were trying to develop a particular product, and the product resulted in failure, and they lost, I think, about $500 million. And, you know, everybody were at their toes, wondering, oh, we'll get sacked. It's sad. It's terrible. As a matter of fact, you deserve to be sacked. $500 million is a lot of money. If I were the one, I would sack you. $500 million. It's a lot of money. But you know what the CEO said? He said, well, everybody should go back to work. We just learned a new thing. And what we learned is that we've learned how not to conduct our research. Now, that communication is short, you know, but what it does is that it puts the R&D team on their toes, because come to think about it, we just lost $500 million. So we want to lose another money. That is one. Two is that we need to come up with an initiative that will recoup the money we lost. So by default, your team will be open to come up with new initiative, because that's the only way to be disruptive. What is going on? How are things being done? How can we integrate them into our system and get things, you know, our way? So for example, that's the reason why you would see that for a lot of companies in Nigeria that are doing really, really well at the moment, I assure you that if you really want to check the demography, that is like the age range, the age band for the team, I assure you that most of them are Gen Zs and millennials. If you really want to go back and conduct your survey for most organizations at the moment, that are doing very well when it comes to the use of integration of tools, whether it's HR or they are doing well in their industry. If you really want to go back, their workforce is primarily like 80% of their workforce, if not more, are millennials and Gen Z. And these two teams, they, especially the Gen Zs, no patience. We want to get things done right now. So it means that as an organization, we need to learn how to deal with them. Especially if the organization you're running or your manager you're with has a management team that are baby boomers, who are not very, very quick to change, who are not very agile, who are very slow to their things. They take their time before they get things done. You will observe that a lot of the millennials, some of the millennials and the Gen Z, I can't be here, I'm out. And they rather go with a team that is more proactive. Why? Because when I come with initiative and I table in front of them, we can discuss it and then move forward instead of having to wait 6 extra months to think about whether it will work or not. Now, I'm going to share something that was very funny thing, and then I'll come to a conclusion. A very funny incident happened that I knew about. A particular company I know about. One of its team were discussing an initiative. Very wonderful initiative to know how to increase their product line. So this person shared this information with the manager, and the manager was like, "Oh, your idea is good, but MD might not take this your idea. Also, you have to factor in this, factor in that." So the guy said, "I have done the cost analysis. I know you are away, but when you are back, I can show you the cost analysis and we can run this project." The manager said, "I'm not trying to demoralize you. I'm telling you, this is real life story. I'm not trying to demoralize you, but I think we should come up with something different." The funny thing, after 2 weeks, the initiative that they are trying to paint, their competitors came up with that initiative and launched it. It was so funny. Like I laughed. I was just laughing, like, wow. So what I'm saying is that what you think, is for the later future, I assure you that your competitor at the moment are developing. They are not even waiting. They are developing at the moment. They are developing of launching it. So the question is whether you will start now and be the one who disrupts and everybody follows suit, or you will jump on the train, or you rather choose to stay at the terminal. Now, this is the conclusion of the whole matter. I'm sure a lot of us are well acquainted with Kodak. Kodak is it was in the early 1990s, maybe close to early 2000s. They were really dominant. They were a dominant player, in the photography paper market and and the things like that. So, but when there was a development of digital photography, they were not agile. They didn't jump on the train. They were like, we are Kodak, we have a very good market share. People know us, people know our brand, people trust our brand more. They didn't jump on the train, to become more digital. But what happened? In 2012, they filed for bankruptcy because now other companies came up that are more digital with their photography. Why Kodak actually stopped with their film and photography market. But afterwards, they came up with new initiative and they tried to come into the market with their new tools and new things. But unfortunately, they were not really in pair with their competitors during those periods. Competitors like maybe Canon and the likes of them and Nikon, they were not able to keep in pair, right? So what I'm saying is that whether you like it or not, disruption is coming. Whether you like it or not, you will either have to choose either to be disruptive, to be agile, to be proactive, or to be passive. Now, but these words I just showed you is not in words, it's in action. What do you do? So you want to go back and do your evaluation. The team that we have, are we disruptive? That is, we have a disruptive mindset. Are we always looking at setting pace for the industry, setting out new things for the industry? And I can assure you it's not by size. Or do we like, to just jump on the train, because sometimes to be disruptive would require some money when you want to maybe do your R&D, to do your research and do some of those things and see and evaluate if the industry or the market really love what you really want to come up with. So it might come with a lot of money. But the question also is that are you at the tip of the market, always monitoring what is in vogue so that you can jump on the train when it starts? So what I would really charge you, or what I would really encourage you is that even if your team at the moment are not very, very disruptive, you can start with being proactive. And I can assure you that people will be excited. When they see the product that they developed, the product that they worked on in the marketplace, doing very well, solving the problem of clients, I assure you they'll be excited and they want to do more. They want to learn more. They want to learn new ways of doing things. Because like I told you, if you're not disrupting, certain individuals are disrupting, and by choice, whether you like it or not, you will need to learn how those things are being carried out. So for example, in Gen AI, there's a certain term called prompt engineering. So at the moment, whether you like it or not, everybody must learn how to use prompt engineering. In the case when you don't learn how to use prompt engineering, you're going to be in big problem. So prompt engineering now is a new skill that people are now trying to learn to use or learning to leverage. So learning to use Google has passed. Google is not a new thing. People now use Google at every point in time, but now Gen AI is in vogue, and we need to learn how to integrate that into our businesses. So I charge you to jump on the train while it is approaching. That you don't wait until the train leaves the terminal and then you are stranded and you're wondering what is going on with me and our organization. That will be it. So thank you very much for taking your time to listen to me. So I'm really open. If you have comments or if you have questions, I'm really open to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that excellent presentation. Thank you so much, Shay. That was beautiful. So if anyone has a question, let's raise our hands so that we recognize you and you can ask your question, or if you have a contribution to make, can still make a few contributions or questions. I would just like to say thank you so much. That was magnificent. Well done, well done, well done.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone with a question or a contribution, or do we call it a wrap? I have like 15 more seconds to check if anyone is interested in saying anything, asking any question from our facilitator. All right. Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much.
Let's just say thank you to Shay.
Thank you very
as
much.
we appreciate him, and we call it a wrap. A lot of people are appreciating you even in the chat box. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the privilege. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.